The Chinese are, the 700-pound gorilla in our industry for EVs. There's no real competition from Tesla or GM or Ford with what we've seen from China.
If you still believe that German cars, American cars, and Japanese cars are untouchable, forever dominant global automotive giants, you're stuck in 2015. Legacy auto brands are dying a slow, painful death, and the entire collapse started in one market, China. Today, we're breaking down every major global car brand by country, exposing exactly how their failure in China is dragging down their global empire. By the end of the video, you know exactly who survives, who vanishes, and why the center of global auto industry has already shifted permanently. Part 1. The Midas Fortress is crumbling from within. German brands. For decades, German engineering was the gold standard. BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Audi, Porsche, Volkswagen, these were the brands that wrote the rule book. Now, they're getting crushed in their most important market on earth. For 20 years, these brands printed money in China. They charged 20, 30, even 50% more for the exact same cars you could buy in Europe. The German luxury badge was an unbeatable status symbol, and the price floor was unbreakable. Not anymore. Today, flagship electric models like the BMW i7 are getting slashed by over 30% off sticker price. We're talking about $40,000 off a single car. Even their bread and butter sedans, the 5 Series, the E-Class, are now selling at entry-level prices, dipping under $42,000. That was unheard of 5 years ago. It's not just price collapsing. The entire dealer network is imploding. Just recently, a massive top-tier Mercedes dealership in Guangzhou shut down out of nowhere, leaving thousands of customers stranded with prepaid service packages and no way to get their money back. Mercedes basically washed their hands of it, saying dealers are independent businesses. This isn't an isolated incident. Hundreds of top-tier dealerships have closed their doors across China in the last 2 years. Why? Because they lose money on every single car they sell. The old model of fat profit margin on new cars and even fatter margins on service, dead. And here's the kicker. This isn't just a China problem. China was their single biggest cash cow for 20 years. All those fat Chinese margin funded their global R&D, research and development, their fancy headquarters, their racing teams. Now, the cash cow is drying up fast. With less money coming in, they're slashing EV and self-driving R&D budgets. That means their next-gen cars will be even less competitive against Chinese brands. The slower they innovate, the more market share they lose. The more market share they lose, the less money they have to innovate. Audi already threw in the towel. They straight up partnered with SAIC, the Chinese EV maker, to build their next generation of electric cars on ADP platform. They stopped even pretending they can compete on their own tech. They adopted Huawei's ADS autopilot system. Let that sink in. The brand that invented quadro all-wheel drive that bragged about Vorsprung Dodge Technik, progress through technology, is now buying EV tech from a Chinese company that didn't exist 15 years ago. Speaking of German luxury icon falling off, let's talk about Porsche. Or Porsche. The ultimate status symbol. The brand that made people wait 6 months and pay $10,000 over sticker price just to get behind the wheel. For years, China was Porsche's biggest market on earth, making up nearly a third of global sales and an even bigger chunk of global profits. Those days are gone, for good. In just 4 years, Porsche's China sales have crashed 56%. Their global operating profit plummeted 92.7% in 2025. Their return on sales fell from a juicy 14.1% to a pathetic 1.1%. That's basically break-even for a luxury brand. What happened? Chinese premium EV brands NIO, Li Auto, Ito stole their core buyers. Wealthy Chinese customers used to buy a Cayenne or Panamera to show off. Now they buy a Li Auto Mega or NIO ES9. These cars are faster, quieter, packed with way better tech, and more luxurious. The Porsche logo just doesn't carry the same weight it used to. And without those fat Chinese profit margins, Porsche can barely fund their electronic supercar transition. The 70-year-old mold they built around luxury and performance is eroding faster than anyone thought possible. Now, the biggest German brand of all, Volkswagen Group. Volkswagen was the original foreign auto success story in China. For decades, the Santana was the most common car on Chinese roads. The joint venture with FAW, SAIC printed money. At their peak, China made up almost 30% of Volkswagen's global profits. Today, the profit stream has collapsed by 80% in 4 years, from over 5 billion euros a year to under 1 billion. The fallout? Volkswagen first announced 50,000 global layoffs, then they doubled it to 100,000. They're cutting 3 million units of global production capacity and some entire model lines. And their big Hail Mary? They didn't just partner with Chinese tech company, they bought into one. Volkswagen dropped $700 million on a stake in XPeng, and they're building their next generation of Chinese market EVs on XPeng's platform. To be exact, it's XPeng's G9 architecture, with XPeng's self-driving software, XPeng's smart cabin, and XPeng's 800-volt charging tech. Their first co-developed model, the ID Unix 08, already hit production in 2026. The company used to teach China how to build cars is now buying Chinese tech to stay in the game. Of course, VW isn't going to bankrupt tomorrow. They're too big, they have too many markets around the world, but they will never be the industry leader again. They're transitioning from a technology company to a brand label. They will slap a VW logo on cars built on Chinese platform, Chinese technology, and sell them around the world. That's their future. Part 2. Decades of complacency killed them, Japanese brands. For decades, Japanese brands were unstoppable. Toyota was the biggest car maker on earth. Honda, Nissan were household names. Lexus was their gold standard for reliable luxury. They built their empire on quality, efficiency, and bulletproof reliability. But when the world shifted to electric smart cars, they completely missed the boat. And nowhere is the failure more obvious than in China. Toyota spent years marketing electric cars. They pushed hybrids hard, insisted hydrogen was the future. They wrote off EVs as a niche fate. By the time they realized they were wrong, it was too late. Chinese brands had already eaten their lunch. Their busy line of EVs was a universal flop. Outdated tech, clunky software, terrible range. No one wanted them. Their core gas and hybrid cells are shrinking every single year as Chinese EVs get cheaper and better. So what's Toyota's master plan? They lean hard on BYD, China's biggest EV maker. Take Toyota bZ3 for example. It uses BYD batteries, BYD motors. Toyota basically just tuned the electric control, designs the body, and slaps their logo on it. And it gets worse. Toyota just completely overhauled their China strategy. All new EVs for Chinese market will be developed 100% by local Chinese team. Japanese headquarters, they only sign off for branding and styling. That's it. A company that invented lean manufacturing that revolutionized the global auto industry is now reduced to a brand licensor in the world's largest car market. And what's the global ripple effect? China is the world's largest EV testbed. If you lose here, you lose access to the biggest pool of real-world driving data, the fastest supply chain, and the most cutting-edge innovation. Lose in China and you lose the global EV race. Toyota will be stuck selling gas cars and hybrids in Southeast Asia and Africa for another decade, while the rest of the world moves on. They will be the last man selling flip phones in the smartphone era. If Toyota is slowly adapting, Honda just straight up surrendered. Honda killed their old Japan Designs China sales model entirely. All new EVs for China are developed by local Chinese teams, using all Chinese supply chains for batteries, self-driving tech, and infotainment systems. Japanese headquarters has basically zero input on actual product. Let me translate that for you. Honda openly admitted they cannot keep up with the pace of China's smart EV market. They cannot develop competitive tech fast enough. They cannot price their car competitively. So they just hand over the keys. This is not a joint venture anymore. This is a brand licensing deal. Honda gets a cut of every car sold, and Chinese companies do all the actual work of building and designing the car. Eventually, the China-developed tech will roll out to their global models. Soon, Honda EVs sold all over the world will be powered by Chinese technology, and most buyers won't even know it. But you know it because you're watching my video. Now let's run through the rest of Japanese brands, because most of them are already on their way out. Mitsubishi already packed up and left. They dissolved their joint venture back in 2023 and completely pulled out of Chinese car production. They're gone. Nissan, the worst performer of the big three Japanese brands. Their flagship Sylphy sedan, once the best-selling car in China, sells cut in half. Their entire EV lineup is dead on arrival. They are losing market share faster than anyone. Mazda, totally irrelevant. No real EV plans, shrinking sales, tiny market share. They are just coasting on nostalgia until they can't coast anymore. And Lexus? Lexus. The import Lexus King used to charge over sticker price and make people wait months for a car. Their sales are crashing, their price premium is gone, and their EV transition is moving at a glacial pace. The bubble is officially popped. Alright, the Germans are struggling, the Japanese are collapsing. What about the American brands? Part 3. A tale of two extremes. American brands. American car brands have a weird history with China. Some flop hard, while Tesla hit the jackpot, because China saved Tesla. Back in 2019, Tesla was on the brink of bankruptcy, stuck in Model 3 production hell, and burning billions in cash every quarter. People say they will bankrupt in 6 months. No Western government will bet on them. Then Shanghai stepped in with an unprecedented deal. China's first 100% foreign-owned auto company. Tesla only paid 10% of local land price. State-backed low-interest loans and zero bureaucratic red tape. Ground broke in January 2019. 10 months later, the Gigafactory was built and production cars rolled out of assembly line by December. Fastest record in automotive history. If Tesla chose Germany to build their first overseas Gigafactory during the crisis, they would have been long dead, because it took Germany 2 years to build their Gigafactory. China literally pulled Tesla straight from the edge of collapse. Today, Shanghai remains Tesla's top global export hub, but dominating China's domestic market? Far from it. They sold only 626,000 units in Chinese market last year. Market share from 10% down to 4.9%, squeezed hard by Chinese brands on all sides. They're simply the only foreign brand that didn't entirely blow their chance. GM and Ford are in full strategic retreat because they know they can't win long-term against Chinese brands. They're not trying to gain market share anymore. They are just trying to stop losing money so they don't bleed out. Take GM. They used to be one of the biggest players in China with their Buick, Chevrolet, and Cadillac brands. Today, Chevrolet is basically irrelevant. Buick is a shadow of its former self. Cadillac is getting crushed by Chinese premium EVs. They're cutting capacity left and right, axing low-margin models, and shrinking their dealer network. They're not fighting to grow, they're fighting to not lose too much money. Ford is even worse. Their sales are abysmal. They brought Lincoln over to China to compete with luxury brands, and it completely flopped. Their EV division lost so much money, they gutted the whole thing. They're in full survival mode.
Is it enough? Is it enough to compete both here and in China?
The Chinese are, the 700-pound gorilla in our industry for EVs. There's no real competition from Tesla or GM or Ford with what we've seen from China.
Both GM and Ford basically have the same mindset. China is no longer a growth market for us. We stay here as long as we make a little money. We're not investing big to win. We're minimizing losses. Part 4. French Korean niche brands disappearing. First up, Korean brands, Hyundai and Kia. 10 years ago, they were rising stars in China. They were cheap, reliable, stylish. They were eating into Japanese and German market share. Today, they're ghosts. Sales have collapsed. Dealerships are closing left and right. Their gasoline cars cannot compete with the Chinese brands on price or features. And they have no competitive EV lineup to fight back. Their luxury brand Genesis? No one even knows they exist in China. It's a non-factor. Next, Chinese EV brands are going to eat their lunch in Europe, in Southeast Asia, and Latin America. Hyundai and Kia global market share will keep shrinking and shrinking. In 10 or 15 years, they will be tiny regional brands, mostly selling cars in their home market of Korea. They will be the next Suzuki, big at home, irrelevant everywhere else. Next, French brands. Oh, Frenchy. Stellantis, Peugeot, and Citroen brands have been in China for decades, and they have never really cracked the mainstream. Today, they're barely hanging on by a thread. Tiny sales numbers, tiny dealer network, a tiny niche buyer base that kills French design nostalgia, zero meaningful EV progress. Remember DS, the premium brand? Basically defunct. No one buys them, no one talks about them. Renault? They built on Chinese passenger cars years ago. The only reason they're still in China is to source cheap parts for their global markets. That's it. French brands have been dying a slow death in China for over 20 years. Now the rest of the world is next. Now the most embarrassing fall of all is Maserati. Let me set the scene. Maserati, Italian luxury, the Trident badge, fast, sexy, expensive. It's the symbol of success. The car every kid had a poster on their wall. I wanted a Maserati when I was young, because I'm a Pisces. At their peak in China, they were selling thousands of cars a year, making sweet fat profits. Today, they only sold 1,374 cars in China last year. That's total for the whole brand. That's less than some Chinese brands sell in one single day, down 90% from their peak. So what's Maserati's grand plan to save themselves? They're begging Huawei for help. That's right, Maserati is in deep talk with Huawei and Chinese automaker JAC to build their next generation of electric cars. Here's how it works. Huawei supplies all the core smart tech, the self-driving system, the infotainment, the 800-volt EV platform. JAC builds the actual car. Maserati, they design the body, make the seats nice, and stick their Trident badge on the hood. That's it. But on the other hand, Stellantis is making pretty good profit by selling their Chinese EV partner Leapmotor worldwide. In 2025, the total sales volume reached 1 billion euros, 462% surge compared to 2024. If you want to make money, team up with Chinese company. Alright, we've gone through every major brand in every country. Let's wrap this up and talk about what this all means. For 40 years, the old model was simple: market for technology. Foreign brands brought their technology and their engineering expertise, and China gave them access to the massive, fast-growing market. Foreigners call all the shots. Today, the model has completely flipped. It's technology for brand. China builds all the core technology, all the innovation, all the supply chains, and foreign brands just lend their logos and their global sales network. Now, let me leave you with this final thought. China didn't break them. These brands are not falling because China is too competitive. They broke themselves. They're falling because they got complacent, they got arrogant, they bet on the wrong direction. They got lazy after decades of dominating global markets. They thought they could rest on their laurels forever, sell the outdated tech at premium prices, and people would just keep buying. China just exposed how hollow their lead and vision really were. Alright, that's the story. Now it's your turn. Which foreign brand do you think will be the next to completely quit Chinese market? Drop your prediction down in the comment section. If you want to stay ahead in the biggest shift in 100 years of tech and business, hit like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for new videos. This is China Inside. I'm Sean. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.
666